Hey, welcome to Movies Worth Talking About. I am John Carlos, and I am joined by
Eddie. Treading very carefully into this pod.
Yeah, we're here to talk about Leprechaun. I don't know what there's to tread about. Leprechaun's a great goddamn time, right, Eddie?
Sure. It's going to be an interesting push and pull here.
I guess we'll see. Let me just say that when this came out in '93.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailer for it in the theaters with God knows what.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at the time, I remember seeing a different, like what would be considered like a family-friendly movie.
Okay.
And the trailer for Dr. Giggles was in front of it.
Oh.
So who knows what fucking movie I saw the trailer for Leprechaun. But I remember it came out on video.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a video store, about 5-10 minutes walking distance from my house. And one either was summer or spring break, me and my friend walked to the video store and we rented Leprechaun and Fire in the Sky.
Oh shit.
And I thought Fire in the Sky was going to be an accessible sci-fi film, and Leprechaun was going to be a horror movie. And instead, Fire in the Sky still has one of the most terrifying abduction sequences, flashbacks you'll ever see.
Dear God.
It was a ride for a 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. And then Leprechaun was so not a horror movie whatsoever. So but let me say this.
Yeah.
I had a fucking great time laughing and enjoying myself watching Leprechaun in 1993. And in 2022, I still have a great time laughing and enjoying myself. It's just as fun now as it was then.
Good for you.
It seems like I can still go on this ride.
Okay.
And what about you? Do you still go on this ride? Or are you like, no?
I don't think I ever made it to the ride.
Oh,
I don't. I remember, I don't even remember seeing a trailer for it. I do remember seeing the commercials over and over again. And I remember when Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure puts his head down to the crate and the hand comes out. That was always in the commercials. And so was him turning around and going, "I need me gold," and all that stuff with the thing shooting up at Francis in the same scene. And that I remember scared me enough. I remember thinking ooh, that's kind of dark. I thought it was an original idea when it happened. I thought ooh, a dark leprechaun that's all kind of and he looked all kind of Jim Henson creature workshopped up and everything like that. I didn't know it was Warwick Davis, but I loved Willow. And it took me a couple years, actually. I think I followed, because what year was New Nightmare out? Was that 93 also, or 94? That was 94 because of the earthquakes, right? So I saw it after New Nightmare, because I remember after my sister and I had cycled through all of our VHS copies of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, we really wanted another horror franchise to sail through together. We tried Friday the 13th. She ducked out after part 3. She couldn't take it. And I ducked out after part 4. I came back, but because I also wanted to watch something with her. And because she was finally at an age where she was okay watching horror. Her entire childhood, she did not want to watch horror at all. She was too scared. And now I finally had a little horror buddy with me. So we looked on the shelves for stuff, and everything was still a little, too scary. But she saw Leprechaun. She's like, oh, that might be fun. And we watched the first movie. And I think we even rented it together. No. I don't remember what year the second one came out, but I remember eventually we got to the second one. And then we tried to do the third one, and it didn't work. I don't even know if she made it to the third one. Honestly, I think I did that one alone too. But I just remember trying. It's kind of when you have a real good relationship and then you break up. Then you get back out. You're kind of ready to date again. You're like, I want to see someone else and create new memories. And then you're out on your first date and you're like, this is not it. You're never going to be Cheryl, you're never going to be Kevin or whatever, whatever name you want to put in. And and I had that with this movie.
Oh.
I had a very kind of like, I really want to get on board. I really want to have fun with this, but it was, I think also I was getting older, you know, right. I mean, I was all of 14, 15 years old, but I was, I don't know, I was already like looking, I was like, I crave more. And it didn't,
if you're in a
I didn't have fun with that.
Sure, because if you're comparing it to the Kevins and the Cheryls of our pasts, if you're comparing it to The Shining, you know, or Nightmare on Elm Street,
or if you're craving The Shining, because I don't
right. But Eddie, if you're in the mood to just be like, you know what, fuck it, Leprechaun, he's gonna get the job done tonight. He's gonna be dumb fun, and you know what, I'm in the mood for some dumb fun. Like,
yeah. See, you've mentioned that, and
just go to the dive bar with Leprechaun and see what happens, man.
But see,
you don't have to make a relationship out of it.
But see, this is the problem. Leprechaun is kind of like the guy on Grindr now for me, who I'm just kind of like, I mean, we've done it a couple times. It wasn't terrible, but but if I just want to like get my needs met or something, there are so many other guys that I can go to that I think I'll actually have a much better time with, as far as movies. As far as Leprechaun, the movie, there are movies that if I just want to have like cheesy, it's not enough fun for me. I feel like, because, okay, this is the thing. Because I can't have fun with something if I feel like there's missed opportunity. It has to be kind of like a perfect storm of bad. And then I'm just like, and we have those movies that you and I share together. This one is not one of them for me, just because I actually really, really like it from the opening till about the time they reach the house. I mean, Jennifer Aniston and her dad. Because just the opening, even just revisiting it this time, because I remembered very little. I hadn't seen it in many, many years, probably
the whole opening scene.
Yeah.
I thought it opened with Jennifer Aniston getting to the house.
Yeah, me too. But the fact, and I don't even mean the scene, I mean like literally just the sequence where he comes down the little staircase in like a stony kind of castle looking place that's like probably off, you know, across the pond and in on the hills of Ireland, and he finds his gold, and I'm sorry, and I shouldn't have even bothered wearing green today, I'm sorry, but no, but just the fact that like he and Warwick Davis is okay. I love his performance. I think he invests so much in it.
Oh yeah.
I just, again, his performance is like up here for me. I wish the movie would at least kind of meet him a little bit more, because sometimes I don't feel like the movie is at the same level he is.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Because I'm going to say this now in advance, but just imagine me saying it every time you bring up something against this movie. Everything that doesn't work in this movie is also what works in this movie for me. So
okay.
I see how it could be better, but also I'm glad that it's not. Yeah, I do think that the movie could match his performance if the production had just been a little bit tighter, the script had been maybe rewritten and attempted to maybe create themes that it pretends to pay off later but never set up. Sure, you know, but also to me that's kind of the charm, is that like he's sort of this like well-performing anomaly that like no one else is really matching. It's a feature, not a bug.
Okay. I mean, but like I said, it opens beautifully for me, and it just kind of sets the stage really simply. Like Leprechaun loves his gold, kind of creepy. I love the fact that he's backlit.
Oh, we don't see his face for like the first several scenes.
And that was so, again, like remembering very little going into it, this most recent screening, I was actually kind of intrigued again. Like, you know, the way if I were to go on Grindr and be like, oh my God, he's been working out, you know, like haven't seen him in a long time, but he looks good. He looks like he's doing well. And then I go on the date and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a mistake. So I just love that opening, just kind of setting the stage, because it is, I don't know, it works on an atmospheric level. It features him. It just kind of cuts to the chase. And then the next thing we go to with Mr. O'Grady, and his wife, Mrs. O'Grady, who I love. I thought I was in for such a good time with this, just because he's walking up to the porch, she's like, Mr. O'Grady, where have you been? Oh no, what is she? I don't even remember the line she says, but she's just like,
what are you doing with the limousine? We can't afford this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just immediately chastising him and calling him Mr. O'Grady. So for a second, you're like, wait, is she his maid? Is this like a Henry Higgins and she's like Mrs. I forget, I don't even remember it, but the maid, like the housekeeper. I run the house, Mr. O'Grady, but I guess she was just angry at him. And then immediately I start like, he's just like, I made him show me his gold, and I'm like, how? I'm like, well, that would have been interesting to see, but what, how, and why? And I mean, and there is lore that kind of gets alluded to. Again, this movie kind of does like a good job of bringing up the lore half the time, and then the other half, the stuff that they're kind of responsible for introducing and creating. It's like a collision that doesn't quite mesh well for me, because if you find, according to original lore, if you find a leprechaun, they have to take you to their gold. If you find a leprechaun, they have to take you to their gold. But if you find their gold, they have to give it to you. Or if they don't want to surrender it, because they're very, very greedy, because they work very, very hard and they do treasure it, they value it, they can offer you 3 wishes. But the 3 wishes usually come with like a catch. Yeah. Like you can have your 3 wishes if you solve me riddle, kind of thing. And then if you don't solve the riddle, then you're fucked, so. But they're never, as far as I could tell, they have never been malicious in their own lore. That's the take.
That's the take.
And but that's why, like, when they introduce like ways to kill him and stuff like that, I'm like, in all my research, I never saw anything about killing a leprechaun.
Right. Growing up as a kid, the 4-leaf clover was such a good thing to be associated with St. Patrick's Day and leprechauns that's the one thing that they're like, no, but the 4-leaf clover is just like, kryptonite. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure. And and the shoe cobbling thing is true. They love.
Yeah, and I loved the inclusion of that. I like the idea of, hey, let's take a fairy tale / modern folklore type thing and make horror thing out of it.
Yeah,
great idea. Going all cheeseball with it, I like it. But there's also a version of, oh, you could have really done this though. Yeah, if you wanted to. Yeah, you really could have with it. But I'm not worried about what could have been. I do like what we got, and I do appreciate that they're like, no, we're not just. I'm not saying it's the most accurate thing ever, but I remember even as a kid going, oh, you're including like the shoe polishing in this. Wow, okay, you're really okay. I mean, but it is a weird thing of like, well, you got his gold, so that should be it. But he can just come after you and be like, well, I want it back. I'm gonna kill you. And I'm like, well, what's the point of getting it from Leprechaun if he can just teleport and get it from you?
That said, the whole, and I did appreciate the shoe cobbling thing, because I think it's funny and it's accurate and it's just interesting. It's like, oh, you can't do that with your Leatherface or your Freddy Krueger or your Michael Myers or maybe you could pretend to be like Jason's mother, or say uncle to Uncle Boogeyman.
Or you could type into the VR thing and manifest some naked girls smoking weed and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Slow them down.
But so I mean, that was interesting. But that said, like because they introduced like earlier, like, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but just the fact that like they're trying to shoot him in the kitchen, like the kids, when they're like all in the house and everything like that, and he's like disappearing and reappearing and teleporting and everything like that, and I'm just kind of like, oh, this is kind of like an insurmountable challenge. Like, how are you ever going to hit him? Then when they discover the shoe thing, they forget that they have guns. They don't just take him out. And I'm like, and when the movie doesn't do that, I start to get tired, because I'm just kind of like, why isn't anybody trying to shoot the okay.
The only time I felt like that was when they go to the truck to try to escape. But I'm like, did you guys not forget about her dad's Jeep? All right, whatever.
Maybe they left it at the hospital. I don't know.
No, it's there, because then she uses the Jeep to drive to visit the old man.
That's right. See, stuff like that. Yeah. But
I mean, when I think Nathan first gets injured.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there with Tracy, and we're like, "We'll go to the hospital." Like they're calling for, and that's like, just drive to the hospital. Just go to the hospital right now. And then finally, like 10 minutes later, they're like, they start taking to the truck to leave. I'm like, well, yeah, I would have gone right away. But again, that's not, I don't want to be one of those people that easily just goes, you don't go to a movie like this to see smart people make smart decisions. Like that's
sure.
But in this case, at least they got to the van, or not the van, the truck. Took them a few extra minutes, but they did.
Yeah. Okay. Makes me tired.
I will say this. I never really thought about the like, oh, I made him show me my gold and stuff. Because at that point, we don't know everything about the Leprechaun yet. So it sounds like they're telling me a very traditional kind of Leprechaun story. So I go with it. Everything in the first 5 minutes to me falls under what I call kid logic.
Sure.
And the movie does it well. We're like, oh, I made him show me my gold. And the fact that he shows her how rich they are simply by presenting a bag of gold coins. And I see grown adults going like, oh, we're rich. We're rich. We have gold coins. Because when I was a kid, gold coins meant, ooh, you're rich,
Yeah.
It's not like, it's not like Fort Knox and, Goldfinger and all these gold bars. Like it's just a sack of coins, but
sure.
Kid logic, boy, they hit it rich. You know how I know that he hit it rich? He got a limo to bring him home because only rich, famous people drive limos.
Right.
It's all kid logic.
Yeah. No, and even
I know when you're hammering nails into that crate, like, oh man, that really means that you're locking them in there. You're hammering nails into a crate. Like it all spoke to me when I was a kid.
Right. And at this point, I'm still on board because also, okay, this is interesting because I'm glad you brought up the kid logic because it did appeal to like the same part of my brain that would turn to, and even then, that would like watch, I don't know if anybody remembers the show, I think Steven Spielberg produced it, Amazing Stories, which would sometimes, mostly they'd just be strange. But sometimes there'd be like a horror element or a fantastical kind of like element that is not of this world. And there'd be just enough of it to kind of like unsettle you or just enough of it to be weird for you not to feel completely safe. And I got that from all of this opening because it felt playful, but it also felt what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost prank driven, like like the filmmakers waiting to just like play a prank on me, and I get excited about that kind of thing. So
mischievous?
Like because
that. I find the Leprechaun himself to be quite mischievous.
I do, yeah, I do. And again, because that's another thing I really liked about this opening was just like the setting up of the device of him singing. What was it?
Oh God.
Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
In the child's voice. Oh, you do? What?
Yeah, no, not that I'm not scared of the scene. But okay. Little kid voice singing, if you are a grown-ass woman or even us grown-ass men, and there is a fucking like suitcase with a little girl singing, I don't walk up to it and then put my ear next to it and get the fuck out of here. I'm leaving the fucking room. And I'm taking that bag and I'm throwing it in the fire. What are you talking about?
Oh, but see this kid logic. No. I'm not.
That goes beyond that. That's dumb horror movie logic.
But what I like about it is also
who's there,
right. But also, her husband comes home. Granted, he's in a limousine, but he's talking about catching a leprechaun and making him show him his gold. And now they're easy street baby, and or easy street baby, and and for all she knows, he's gone mad and trapped a child in a box or something. So even that, like, I didn't mind any of that, and it. But what I thought, I didn't think about it from the vantage point you just presented. All I thought was, oh, what a clever angle to try and get him to like bait people. And it's almost like he's another element of like trickery, because it's like being able to throw your voice. You can, modify it like to kind of like entice whoever you need to. And I like that.
I don't like her response to it, but I do like that he can do that.
Yeah.
Especially when he's in the crate. I'm like, oh, let me out of here.
And then I was so confused because I couldn't tell. And I don't remember, was it Mr. O'Grady? Did it happen? It happened to Mr. O'Grady too, when he was like upstairs and he could hear the leprechaun's voice, right?
Yeah.
But it was like with like a lot of reverb, a lot of echo. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, so can he also like through mental telepathy just kind of like speak to us like in our minds? Is he in his head?
Or can he throw his voice into the room?
Or whatever.
But he can sense what's happening to him.
Right. And I didn't necessarily need an explanation, but at some point it would have been interesting for somebody to maybe remark on it, like go, you know, or gesture, or like just do more to kind of illustrate to me like what's going on. We don't have to have an exposition dump, but just, you know, like little things. So just draw me in, you know?
I couldn't help but think if they filmed him falling over and then said in post, wouldn't it be neat if he was taunting him? But the scene originally maybe didn't play out that way.
I also thought he died.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell, did the leprechaun kill him, or was it just the stress of catching the leprechaun?
Is this his magic affecting him?
Yeah.
Or does his magic just allow himself to sense what's happening to him, and now I'm just going to taunt you?
And I still don't know. All I can think is, I think it was just kind of lucky for the leprechaun that he did that. That he keeled, that Mr. O'Grady keeled over, because if he can give him a heart attack, why couldn't he just kill everybody else that way?
Well, later in the movie, he doesn't have his gold, so like he needs to get his power back, because he mentions how he isn't at full strength. Okay. Which I always thought, well, once he gets all of his coins, and I think he even is more powerful once he has his coins back, or 99 of them. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't have his coins at the beginning of the movie, maybe it's because they're freshly taken, so he's not freshly depleted yet. But no, He's not at full strength.
He's like an iPhone that's been unplugged and been playing movies all day.
He is actually the eye leprechaun.
Yeah. So, and another thing, just like the total technical thing, like it started the whole irkdom for me was just, why did they roll the credits over that whole opening sequence? I would have sat through a Friday the 13th, dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 you know, just like
run all the credits.
Green credits. Yeah, green credits. Do it. Make it happen.
No, but just run all the credits over the introduction of Jennifer Aniston, because it's taking all the piss out of this opening scene.
Yeah.
If you're running credits over actual, like, I don't want to say suspense, but, you know, the scene is of, you know, in the basement, where is he, you know?
Filmmakers need to know.
And then production design by so-and-so. It just
filmmakers need to know when you roll credits over something, you're basically saying this is vital for you to see, but it's incidental. Yeah. It is both things. Like we gotta kind of show you this because rules, but because if we don't, then it might not make sense. But it's not like that important. It's not the most important stuff. It's just kind of stuff for you to kind of set the atmosphere. But here, by the way, this person was the executive producer, and this person did the art direction, and you know, and it makes it. Yeah, you're right. It takes the piss. That's a good way to. It takes the piss right out of that whole opening sequence. And I didn't need that. And also, I mean, oh my God, what better thing to roll credits over than a fucking like road trip through the countryside to like the house that they're getting to. That could have been the whole opening credits too, but I don't know, whatever.
But honestly, yeah, either that or like you said, we see him come down the steps. Mm-hmm. I love that he like uses magic and either shuts the door or just eliminates the light, you know, says his little speech and then credits. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we find ourselves,
Well, you were mentioning before just him being backlit. I just thought now would be a good time to mention that while there are at times very conventional ways of filming this, there are other moments where the first time I'm like, oh, cool, like you're doing a Dutch tilt. That's neat. And then like 20 Dutch tilts later, I'm like, hey, cool, you sure do love that Dutch tilt. But it's still kind of effective when they're in the, you know, the old folks home and it's just constantly like, meh, 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 meh. But still, like, I'm not going to give this movie, you know, giant praise, but you know, when the four-leaf clover falls off the box and like it falls ever so dramatically and lands this close to this wide angle lens, it's very dramatic.
Right.
He's backlit. You know, there were some attempts there to try to you know, there's a crane or two. I'm like, okay, you're trying. You know, at times.
It just gives me more questions though. I'm like, okay. You go finish your thing and I'll say my thing.
But then other times other times there are choices at the other end, like, well, how do we display that this is a field of clovers, this little patch of clovers? I don't know, it's pointed green light on it.
Mm-hmm.
But now their legs are green and their faces are green. I don't know. It's just fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's a very Ed Wood approach. I don't know. Who cares?
At least it adds a kind of fantastical approach. Like, I actually really appreciated the flushes of green where they would put them. Those felt very strategically kind of placed. And I was like, good, more of that. More. And again, I don't know what kind of what kind of schedule they were on, like that they were trying to keep, like what their deadlines were. I know that they originally did not intend for this to be as scary as they ultimately started pushing, as they advertised it for. And in fact, I know the director and writer, same man, Mark Jones, didn't want to cast Warwick Davis because he thought he was too likable. He had seen Willow and he was like, he's a hero. And, who's going to be afraid of that? And Warwick Davis was like, I really want to do this because I'm an actor and I'd like the opportunity to show, how that I can do more than just one thing. And also, how many other movies am I going to get to be the titular character? So, so we talked to him and he convinced him, but I think Mark Jones still kind of pulled back a little bit and made it more, again, probably in the vein of Amazing Stories and, like kind of more kid family friendly fare that's just a little weird. And then when test audiences were watching it, they walked in expecting a horror movie and they were disappointed when they didn't get that. So all of that was put in and shot afterwards, like little inserts with the pogo stick for the gore and stuff like that. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So I think that's another reason why there's a disconnect for me.
I mean, it's not as drastic of a contrast as, say, Deadly Friend, which is blatantly like an Audgie Shucks movie, and then all of a sudden heads are exploding.
Yeah.
But there is sort of Amazing Stories is a somewhat family-friendly energy to it.
Yeah.
At times. But yeah, I just want to give some credit to the, I don't know, the way, so maybe the inconsistency with how flat some other elements are shot is because, like, hey, we're going to go back and reshoot, and we don't have time for a crane for this one, or,
Yeah, I mean, and then again, like, I feel one of the major components that people tend to remember about this movie, besides Warwick Davis, is Jennifer Aniston. And I don't think it's her fault. It's not her fault. They didn't give her anything to do in this movie.
I think
my opinion.
I mean, there's enough on the page of like spoiled brat who like instantly wants to get out and check into a hotel. Like, it's not, I mean, look, is it two-dimensional and not much? Sure. But I've seen roles that are fucking nothing. That like I couldn't even begin to describe you what a personality was. This at least has, though written in crayon, a personality,
But the thing is, I wish, again, they could have gone like completely in one direction. It's too middling for me, because I wish I could have gone in like one direction and just made her absolutely vapid and intolerable. And she
kind of starts out like,
no, but I mean, this is the thing. They also tried to, it feels like they're trying to set up some kind of arc for her where, yes, she's all shallow and she's like, LA is the place I want to be and everything like that. And I'm going to find a hotel and here's $20 instead of an apology and all that bullshit. And daddy, like all that stuff. Daddy, buy me a pony. Daddy, I don't like that. And buy me another pony. And then she meets up with Nathan and it's like, oh, now she's finally meet someone who says no. And I'm not on board with it because I don't like Nathan either, because he's a sexist fuck, and I could tell from the way the actor is playing it. It's not his fault, but I can tell from the way he's playing it, we're supposed to like him, and the way they shoot him, we're supposed to like him. We're supposed to kind of be like, yeah, put her in her place. And I'm like, no, he's a fuckhead too. And so I can't really enjoy them, but yet at the same time, they're also trying. I wish I understood better why she's staying, because there's not really a lot of chemistry between the two of them. So I don't think it doesn't make sense to me that she's staying because she wants to be around him and wants to try and like forge some kind of relationship with him. But it also doesn't make sense to me if she's just staying to try and prove something. So, because he basically called her chicken.
Right.
Well, why does she give a shit what he thinks?
Yeah, I don't understand why she gives a shit other than, well, look at his arms. But they don't ever focus on her being like, ooh la la, like hamana hamana.
No.
And now, yeah, it just feels like, oh, now I'm gonna, yeah.
And they never cross that line either. They never really. The one time they're on a quasi date in the diner, he's criticizing her for being skinny and basically cuts up some of his meatloaf and passes it to her tells her to eat because she needs to put some meat on her bones or whatever the fuck he says. And I'm just like, I didn't like it then. I don't like it now.
And calls her hypocrite for being all about the animals.
Oh, with the leather
puts them
and
in
shit.
Her, but she's totally okay wearing them.
Right. Which, okay, fine. But again, it just feels kind of like
Eddie,
maybe Mark Jones being angry at like his ex.
I wouldn't say I'm nostalgic. I wouldn't say I'm nostalgic for this, but I was vaguely in that. I don't want to say I was genuinely charmed, but I was like ironically charmed by like the 90s, the battle of the sexes, when men could be misogynists, all this shit. I'm like, wow, this shitty 90s idea of like Cary Grant and like, fucking women. Like, I'm like, oh, I forgot, besides Jurassic World, how far we've gotten away from that, and in Jurassic World, I kind of cringed over it. Whereas in this, I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally a thing then. This was flirting and this was banter.
I think if we're gonna like compare Jurassic World to Leprechaun, though, I'd say the reason maybe Jurassic World hooks me more than Leprechaun does. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but as far as just like the leading lady, as it were, flawed in Jurassic World, but at least there is attempts to give dimension that actually do land for me. I cry every time Bryce Dallas Howard touches that brachiosaur who's laying down, like after they've all been massacred by the T-Rex. I don't ever feel close to Tori. I couldn't even remember her name for a second, but I don't ever want to root for her. The only time I actually kind of like feel like I'm in her in her shoes is when she's talking to Alex about what's his name, Ozzy, and I wrote it down. Where is it? He's talking about like, but no, I did it because we got to fix Ozzy's brain, and she says, Alex, you can't fix Ozzy's brain, and he says, I know that, but he doesn't. And I'm like, what the fuck is this movie? What are you trying to do? This is not a sentimental thing. Nope. Alex is a shitty kid also, who's the one who told Ozzy that he's not smart and that people talk about him behind his back. And now we're trying to be just like, but he doesn't know that. No, he does know that because you're a little shit and you told him.
Eddie, everything that's wrong about the movie is actually what's great about the movie.
For you.
No, because anytime it attempts to like do that, where that's like the fact that she points that out to him and then he's like, no, it's all that. The fact that it tries to do that, and it comes out of nowhere, and I just kind of go, what the fuck? Oh, this is great.
Like all he had to say after that was, and besides, it's not just for life, it's for Christmas. And then the snow falls outside the window and the carolers are there, and then the leprechaun massacres them. And see, I would have embraced that. Go full force with it.
Like you said, like, what the fuck is this? Had there been other scenes, but there's about 2 or 3 different instances in this movie where like a scene happens, and I go, why is this only? There was no. Why is this like? I'll give you my favorite example is when she's like, we can't find the fucking 4-leaf clovers, and then Ozzy's like, no, you just gotta have faith. You gotta believe. If you believe, and I went, wait, was there a fucking plot thread in this movie about like her not having faith?
Yeah.
It just comes up in this one scene as if it was.
I think because she's jaded. She doesn't have faith in anything. She's vapid and social, and
here's the thing, Eddie.
Shopping.
She's a very for the 90s, this was so annoying. She's vegetarian. Oh
right,
my God.
Yeah, right.
She cares about how healthy the paint, the paint and the food, and
it's biodegradable.
Yeah. Oh, what a fucking annoying modern woman, Had they written her to also be like a godless heathen. Dad wants to know where the nearest church, and she's like, "Ugh, Dad, church. I haven't been in years." And then later, they're like, "Oh God, Leprechaun." She's like, God's not gonna help us. So then, in the Cloverfield, when Ozzy's like, "You gotta have faith, you gotta believe," at least the scene would matter and make sense because I knew where it came from. But as it stands, it comes from nowhere. And she doesn't actually have faith and she says it sarcastic. She goes, "Okay, fine, like I fucking believe," and then she finds it. I'm like, no, she didn't even mean it. She was fucking pissed and kidding.
That actually really worked for me because I absolutely adore Miracle on 34th Street, the original one with Natalie Wood when she was a little girl. And spoilers for Miracle on 34th Street, folks. At the very end of the movie, she doesn't want to believe anymore, and her mother, the point is her mother now believes, and her mother's just kind of like, more Irish, because it's Maureen O'Hara. She's just like, "No, you must believe in Mr. Kringle. You must believe that he and she's just kind of like, "All right, fine. You mean," and she said something like, "So you mean it's like if you don't make it once, try again. I thought so." And it's like, oh shit, if I would have said that when I was a kid, I would have gotten smacked. But she's sitting in the car and she's just kind of going, I believe, it's silly, but I believe." And then her wish is granted because I guess she believed just enough. And I felt like that's what happened with Tori here. Was that she was just kind of like, "All right, fine, I fucking believe. Oh my God, it worked. I really do believe."
I think it'd even be better if she just flat out said, "I don't," and then she sees it, and that's what causes. She goes, "Oh, well, now I understand."
But then that's the opposite of faith.
Yeah, well, does the movie even really care beyond these 2 pages?
No, not really. I mean, again, I think maybe they tried to set her up as just kind of like this cynical thing. But see,
does the movie care about mental health of this guy that, all we know is that, he does what the movie does, that thing that, again, was very 80s and 90s where, like, they don't have the slightest concept of even what his mental condition is.
No.
But you put him in a loud, childish colored shirt, which usually either means that you're a fun party animal or you're an adult man-child.
Yeah.
And he's an adult man-child because, look, he dresses in overalls but he doesn't have any tics or any affliction, or where you wouldn't have tics and it's just having trouble focusing on things or any kind of vocabulary, just nothing. Simply the fact that he like interacts with the kid. He doesn't even really act that childish. He's just kind of stupid in that way that, like, oh, his mental condition is he's kind of stupid.
His mental condition is he's slow.
Right.
That was the term. That was a broad term. Yeah.
That's the term, and that's how it's played.
Mm-hmm.
And just this idea of like, oh, we're gonna fix your brain. You're like, And then the fact that she, at least with her hip LA, insight and knowledge about how animals are treated and what, she's almost like, no, you can't fucking fix that. Like, she's kind of right, Yeah. But also the fact that he's like, no, I know. I'm like, you do? You really didn't?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this? I don't even fucking know.
Also, like, okay, if you know that, but he doesn't, so you need to keep fighting until you can ultimately fail and really let him down. Like, if you never would have told him he wasn't smart and that people were making fun of him, he might have just been cool hanging out,
Right. Then his
sometimes acceptance is enough. Sometimes you can just accept the people in your life, and
then his shirt is just, I'm the funny fat guy shirt.
Right.
And it's the same shirt,
You're reminding me, though, because I thought it was a very 90s thing. I remember a lot of things, particularly in television in the 90s, like a lot of TV movies and even just like sitcoms where they need to all learn a very special lesson. There would be the slow character, and it would always be played by a very able-minded actor who is obviously playing a part and is just going to go out and smoke a cigarette and eat at Crafty, you know, when they rap on this thing and go back to playing character parts. But the first exposure I ever had to it, you're reminding me, oh my God, it was traumatizing. Episode, I won't dwell on it, but episode of Punky Brewster, there's a woman, it was a woman who worked in the school, and she swept up, and one of the kids was really mean to her and bullied her because she was dumb. And at one point, like, and Punky's like, you know, going in and doing her Punky thing and defending the woman, and then the kid gets scared because Punky is scary, and then Punky goes like, don't worry about him, you know, you're just fine the way you are. And the woman just starts crying, and my little boy brain, I'm like, you know, 6-7 years old watching this, and she starts crying, and I feel so bad. I think I started crying. It was probably the start of that. And but she's just crying because she's just like, no, he's right, I'm dumb and I always will be. And she just keeps crying, and then they cut to commercial, and I'm like, and I didn't know what the fuck to do with that. I just knew, okay, when people are slow, be real nice to them, because if you're not, they'll start crying, and they'll be hopeless, and they'll think, and it's such a, there's another way to tell that story and learn that lesson, and it was so kind of like irresponsible just to kind of be like, see, don't be mean. I guess, I mean, I was still mean too, so anyway.
You saw right through it, and you're like, nope, I'm gonna do the opposite of what
I did what most kids did, which I think was felt empathy as long as the episode was running, and then once it was over, I went right back to being a little shit, you know.
Well, I just like the idea that like this 80s thing didn't work on you and you did the opposite. It just reminds me of the DARE program, where it's like, I didn't know anything about drugs, and now you've taught me everything I need to know about drugs. Like,
I just remember the commercials. That's all I remember. I mean, nobody ever taught me to shoot up or anything like that, but I still don't know. Thank God. Thank God. But anyway, okay, so the movie.
Yeah. I just love the idea at the end, though, that Ozzy's like, I did a smart thing. And it's like, yeah, you did a smart thing. like, is this an arc? It just feels so sad that he says it, that this is how they wrote it, that I did a smart thing. And ultimately, like, well, what did you do? You told him that you had the coin, and then you got your face cut up a lot.
Yeah.
You didn't really do much, but
and what's more, they win the day. And this is another problem I have with Tori. She's holding the 4-leaf clover and runs to wherever they're like all inside. She opens the door, runs in, holding the 4-leaf clover. Leprechaun incapacitates all the men, runs right past her.
Yeah.
She's holding the 4-leaf clover. She knows if she touches it to his skin, he'll die. He'll be destroyed. This will all be over. He runs right past her, and she just watches him. Doesn't even try to touch him with the 4-leaf clover. I don't like this movie. I don't like this movie.
It's not time for this, because someone had the idea, like, oh, we're going to shoot it into his mouth. But they didn't think, well, then we need to incapacitate that clover until that moment. Like, no, she's just, you know.
If you and I get attacked by some kind of deity or some kind of,
and you have the thing,
and I have the thing that will ultimately, you know, like undo them and everything like that, I will stand there holding it and let them run past me, and we'll see how fucking entertained you are when I just stand there going, oh, here, John Carlos, you do it. I'm just a dumb girl. I mean,
look, I'm not trying to defend this movie or anything. I mean,
I'm just telling you why I don't have a good time with it. Like, there's too much.
No, yeah. I will admit, though, that like you said, I still think there's something. It's not something good, but they wrote something to her. But literally the first scene is she gets out, she's criticizing the house, she wants to go to a hotel, they don't have a pool, all this shit. And I'm watching it with Tracy, and Tracy just goes, what a bitch. And I'm listening to her talk, and I went, oh my God, she's Rachel.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, in that first season or two where she's like going off like daddy's credit card and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there really isn't that much of a difference.
No.
Between the two characters, at least where Rachel starts.
And thus the criticism of Jennifer Aniston that she had to, like, you know, kind of, I mean, she didn't have to fight it, I guess. I mean, she ended up making $1 million per episode off the Friends show and everything, and could have just like never had a career after that and been very comfortable the rest of her life. But the eternal argument that people have that like she's not a real actress and that she never plays anything other than Rachel, that was especially in the 90s, because she would do like movies like Picture Perfect or Office Space or other movies like that. And I remember the eternal criticism for Jennifer Aniston was she always plays Jennifer Aniston. She's always just Rachel and she can't do anything else, so therefore she's not a good actress. And I remember I took issue with it then. I didn't really know how to articulate it, and now I do, because I think I appreciate actors. I appreciate actors who can play a multitude of different roles with just like a slight shift of their soul, or just like a slight shift of their mood, or their, like whatever it is they carry with them that is an essence of a person. I always admire that if it's done really, really well and subtly, or sometimes if it's done broadly and theatrically and the actor's having enough fun. Cool. But I also enjoy stars who are true stars, who draw my eye, and who I believe that what they're saying is really coming out of them, and that the actions that they're taking are really their actions. And I'm interested in finding out, well, where is this going to go? How is this going to happen? And she's one of those for me. And subsequently, there are a handful of movies with Jennifer Aniston that I feel like she has been not Rachel. Correct. And like see Management,
Object of My Affection.
I haven't seen that in a long time. Yeah. No, but there was another a Cake. And what was the other one? Oh, The Good Girl with Jake Gyllenhaal and yeah. Oh my God, I fucking love her in that movie. And she's not Rachel in it. So deal with that. But
I would even argue Office Space, she's not Rachel.
I mean, she's Rachel enough, but it doesn't bother me. No, she's not Rachel. Like it's not like but the mannerisms and just like her ticks, like the things that you expect from Jennifer Aniston, like the
people you want to go see that personality, and as long as they're playing the truth of it every time, then you are a good actress. You're a good actor. You were just.
And I would actually prefer that than quote unquote like versatility, and watch an actor gesture and posture through a role and like, oh, look how much I changed my voice. Look how different I look. I gained weight for this. And then I'm watching them and I'm just like, but you are not having one authentic moment on screen. I would rather watch a star be an authentic star than watch, an actor show me how good they are. That pisses me off.
It's not her inflections about Rachel. It's literally the spoiled brat.
In this Rachel. Movie, totally, absolutely. I mean, I'm in total agreement.
I want to.
Could have been the prequel to Friends. She could have. This could have been what.
It could have been, if we didn't have such a fixed image of what her dad was. You could.
That's true. Her dad is pretty wimpy in this. Yeah.
I do. You touched on it a little bit, but Warwick. It's funny that you mentioned that the director didn't want him because he's too likable. Or he plays the hero. Yeah. But when your horror films villains become like the franchise face, like they are the heroes essentially. That's always the cliche, is the villain of your first movie or two over the course of the franchise becomes the hero, and how do you end up making these unlikable people for the hero to just sort of kill off.
Sure.
I thought it was, I mean, I know there's not a lot on paper here, but just the fact that he laughs so goddamn much, I'm like, oh, he's so mischievous. Like I like when a horror villain really likes to play with his food, and all this guy does is play with his fucking food. Maybe a little too much, because there are times where it feels like, I guess this was like a 90s thing. Do you remember when, like, I don't know, let's say we had like the Ninja Turtles. And it's like, and now we have the Ninja Turtles on a skateboard and the Ninja Turtles playing basketball. And like like we had to do just like, how do we make Poochie the rapping dog cool? Well, I don't know, he's got a skateboard and a backwards hat, like, so I don't know. How about the Leprechaun? He's on a pogo stick, and then he's on a tricycle, and then he's on a toy car, and now he's on a skateboard, and he's like, meow, skateboard, meow, skateboard. Now he's on roll. Like, it's so 90s to be like, roller skate Leprechaun, skateboard Leprechaun. Tricycle Leprechaun, you know.
Well, and also his enjoyment, well, I enjoy it as far as the performance is concerned, and I think there was definitely a way to do it that might have worked even more for me, but at times it gets a little distracting because it veers on childish, and not childlike even, but childish, like
yeah, that's what the skateboard like, and the cupboards,
yeah. And I understand leprechauns are playful and also we're creating our own lore and stuff, but there are times where I'm just kind of like, and at the same time, that's unsettling. And then at the same time, I'm unsettled by the fact that at a certain point, I completely lost the scope of what his powers are.
Mm-hmm.
Like what, oh, now he can do this apparently. And that would have actually helped. It would have been nice if either Mr. O'Grady could have been introduced earlier or taking up a little bit more room in the space he did occupy, but I understand that's difficult when you're suspended from the ceiling of an elevator and bleeding out. But because after a while, I get what I call Charlie's Angels full throttle syndrome, where there's no longer any excitement because there are no stakes. It's like, well, ooh, look at me do this stunt. Oh, look at me doing this thing. And it's like, well, I know you're not going to get hurt because it's too early in the movie for you to get hurt. So so this is more for like you to kind of show off. You're like, oh, look at this thing that we put together. And it's like, great. Can we get back to the movie, please? I don't.
Can I just point out that that there's another Irish connection? Justin Theroux plays Drew Barrymore's Irish ex-boyfriend. He's like I'm going to teach you about pain. I'll never forget when I saw that movie. Like, I'm going to teach you about peeing.
I completely
forgot he said pain.
About
peeing.
About peeing.
But let's keep dropping the Irish references.
Right.
Bernie Mac's
okay.
like, you know, Black Irish. You never heard of the Shamrock Shake? Like, it's all in there, man.
Okay. But anyway, no, but so I completely get pulled out when I'm just kind of like, well, it seems like he can just kind of do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, whenever the script decides it's time for this power to be revealed. And it's like, if we just had any kind of scope of like his powers from the beginning, and then maybe got one surprise, one really well-planned surprise where he does something and everybody has a moment where they're like, I didn't know leprechauns could do that. Did you know leprechauns could do that? I didn't know. You know, something like that. You can make a comedic beat. You can usher us back into the movie. And that's another thing. I feel left behind by this movie. It's hard for me to watch because I don't feel like it's like it cares that I'm watching.
And what's wrong with that is actually what's right with the just. You wishing they had put more thought into his powers. I'm like, no, just the fact that they're like, fuck it. I'm like, yep, I see a movie and I'm here for it. I'm gonna go on that ride.
But you brought up Deadly Friend, and I won't make this a pod about Deadly Friend. I would love to do one though. All I will say about that comparison is that yes, Deadly Friend is largely two movies, but both are batshit.
Yes.
And so I am always going, what? For whatever reason. So it fits. It does work. Again, there's a perfect storm of the melding of the elements. And with this, there's good points and there's not so good points.
This movie is a specific kind of trash, and it's not. There's a level that it could actually be worse, and that I feel like you might be more on board with if it didn't squander its potential. But yeah,
or if it didn't try to have potential from the beginning and was just like, we're crap,
right?
He's a crap, and I'd be like, it's crap. That would have been cool.
I think I can't remember what other movie I said this about on a pod, but I had the same thought this time, where there's a lot of scenes. He reminds me a little bit of Chucky and Freddy, only more so because both of these villains just like to laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Like the shadow shows up and he's just like menacing you with his laugh. And he'll just be yeah. And then like he'll show up in a room. Thank you. I didn't even try. I just sort of, I didn't practice it. Let me put it that way. But there are scenes where just he's menacing them, and then at the end he's just like and then leaves, and then he's by himself, you know, going and then he just at some point he'll like say a line and go and I realized, oh my God, did Tommy Lee Jones watch this movie and take inspiration for Two-Face? Because it's very like, I don't have a line. It's just laughter. And I went, oh, I want to see the two of these guys just like have a whole conversation, just laughing at each other.
I mean, when they're backlit, they share a lot of the same kind of creases in their facial prosthetics. So,
and they have the wrinkled cheeks with the smile. Yeah.
That was another thing. Like even like when he was downstairs after he was released, the Leprechaun by isn't his name Lubden or Lubdan, something like that? Don't we find out his actual name at some point in the franchise?
Oh,
Leprechaun.
I haven't seen 2 since like 1995.
Okay. At a certain point, I think we find out that his name is like Lubden or Lubdan or something like that. Anyway, we'll just call him Leprechaun. We'll call him Warwick. No, that's mean because it's Warwick. I love Warwick. Let's give due praise for Warwick. But so Leprechaun is breaking out of his crate, and he's coming over, and he's still backlit, but you can see like the outlines of the lines in his face and everything like that. And it's not scary, but it's still kind of like that element of just like, but this is weird. Like I'm not at ease. Like if I had that like right here, I'd be like, oh, no, thank you. And maybe if we had a more believable character, maybe if we had an actual child, instead of an adult pretending to have the mind of a child who was underneath him, maybe it would have felt a little bit more. Because that's another thing. Like I was thinking, like I wonder if they were also trying to, because he's at like a more diminutive in height, kind of heavy. It did evoke every now and then kind of like an echo of Chucky, not in anything other than just kind of like, oh, it's kind of like Chucky because he's little and he likes to run around and like and playfully kill people and be really, really happy about it. But at least with Chucky, I remember feeling, when we've talked about it in our Child's Play pods, but feeling the threat always. And even though the lore shifts from movie to movie, as far as like, is there a time crunch that we're on as far as how long he can be in this doll body, or isn't there and he's just in the doll body? Whatever the movie sets up, it kind of sticks to that, and I like that. And I that's what I mean in terms of like, because I can have a great deal of fun with any one of the movies in that franchise, and even at its kind of like weakest, for me. But I think I'd still rather watch the weakest Child's Play movie than Leprechaun.
I can see that. I just think it's a specific kind of trash that I think isn't trying to scare you, and it just wants to show you a dumb good time. And I have a dumb good time, and I won't judge anyone for not jumping on that wavelength, but
sure.
I'm also going to say there's better trash out there.
Yeah.
There is trash that for trash is a steak.
Mm-hmm.
And this trash is definitely more of like, Big Mac. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for like a Big Mac of trash. Scott Warwick, and he's a little mischievous little scamp, and I laugh my ass off every time he eats. He's like, oh, Lucky Charms.
Warwick's the toy in the Happy Meal. Like if you're gonna get a Happy Meal and get like your little crappy burger and your little well, they're not crappy fries, but the beef broth and they don't decompose, and that scares me. So there you go. You get like some eternal fries that will live on in your intestines forever, and your burger, whatever, and your overly sweet soda. But then you get your Happy Meal toy, and that's Warwick Davis.
That is Warwick.
Yeah.
I laugh every time he eats. And when I was 13, I'm like, this is the height of comedy. He's a leprechaun. And he's like, ooh, Lucky Charms. That's leprechaun food. That's for me. And then he's like, this is not leprechaun food. This is stupid. And I just thought that was a fucking riot.
And you know why he spits them out, right?
Because it's fucking old.
No.
It's been in the O'Grady cabinet for 10 years.
No. The reason he spits them out is because originally General Mills had a contract or an agreement.
Which is why they're called Lucky something.
Yeah, which is why they're called Lucky Clovers instead.
Yeah.
They had an agreement when I guess it was going to be a more family-friendly kind of thing or whatever. And I think even before Mark Jones put the horror stuff in, they watched it, and either because it was too weird or too scary, or even just because they thought it was crap, they were like, we're not gonna do that. So like, fine, we'll just make a box that looks just like yours, call it Lucky Clovers. And you know what? He's gonna spit them out because everyone knows what those are. So, and then because originally the line where Alex is doing the final shot, it was supposed to be something like like bad luck of the Irish. I don't remember what it was, but it was just like, like fuck your luck, or I don't know, something like that. And instead they were just like, fuck you, Lucky Charms. And then that's why. That
makes me like the line. I just thought he was calling them Lucky Charms because he's a kid, and that's my insulting nickname for you.
I think it was like your luck's run out or something like that. Was the original
little Irish
line.
thing. I'm gonna degrade you by calling you Lucky Charms.
Yeah, I did like that. That did make me chuckle, actually. That's it didn't.
A great line.
I won't say it pulled me back in, but I went.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Yeah, right.
The other line that I like is it cracked me up when I was 13, and I forgot about it on this viewing. Mm. And usually whenever I say Leprechaun, I remember this line. So I'm so happy that it surprised me and made me laugh all over again. Is when it's the end of the movie and Leprechaun's running out of the barn and he passes by Nathan and he kicks him in the leg and goes, "How's your leg?" He's such a mischievous little scamp. Oh, fuck. Oh, it's a good time, man. It's just a really good time. And I'm sorry I'm just happy that at 41, I'm still amused by these things. And
I know I am too. I'm happy that you're amused by them. I mean, I was never amused by them to begin with.
Still gold, Eddie.
Yeah, right. No, and I was never amused by them. So there is no loss. There's only the same, and that's that's true for both of us, and that's okay.
I do think it's worth just pointing out, because I had this thought like a minute ago. I think we were talking about just the idea of like this kid, degrading him by calling him Lucky Charms just because he's a leprechaun or he's Irish or whatever. The movie has nothing to say, like, as far as, for one scene it's about faith, maybe at times it's about a kid processing mental health. It's not about anything.
No. Maybe it's about a girl trying to prove something to herself. Maybe it's about a girl trying to prove something to some guy. Maybe it's a love story between them. Maybe it's... There's
a lot of maybes. But what I will say is this. I can't help but just wonder if, had this movie had been made 60, 80, 90 years ago, had we looked at it and been like, oh, well, it's a fear of the other. It's about those damn Irish, those potato eating sons of bitches. And we would look at it as like, and we look at it now and go, oh, the way we can look at stuff in the 80s in the fear of Russians, or the xenophobic early 21st century movies about fear of the brown, post 9/11.
Yeah. The community. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it could be literally be the same movie and be like, oh, well, that whole movie is just about fear of the Irish, a pre-Kennedy era. And then we'd go, oh yeah, it's really fucking interesting. But like, you make it 1983 and you're like, nah, it's just about, it's about a guy in a leprechaun costume.
I suspect
because he's not from our country, and how did he get here? Why is he here?
Oh, but you know what?
A movie about a leprechaun does not take place in Ireland. It takes place in the States.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is make the same movie in like the 30s or 40s or 50s. And it's all about the invasion of them in our country. And why is he here? How did he get here?
And I would have loved to have seen like what kind of ostracization or dissension that Tori would have experienced from the town, from the locals, for being a vegetarian then. But
Right?
I will suspect though that, because I think we covered this in Gremlins, talking about the xenophobia, not in Gremlins, but in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original one, and how I believe it was the director or the producer, but I think it was the director, who when interviewed about did you make a movie about the xenophobia and everything like that, and whereas the author of the book said yes, it's very much about fear of the other, it's a sociological, that's what sci-fi is and everything, and then you talk to the filmmaker and he's just kind of like, it's just making a thing about pods. I never meant to make it about xenophobia, but if that's going to get people buying more tickets. So I feel like Leprechaun might have been the Invasion of the Body Snatchers of its day, had it been made 80, 90 years ago. Like, people probably would have perceived it and been like, well, because I mean, I think we do that with cinema anyway. Like, even if there isn't intent behind something that a director puts on screen, happens all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where a director's like, no, I never thought of it like that, and now there's a lot of apologies that are made and a lot of healing that has to be done in that vein, because I thought I was doing a good thing, and now I realize, oh my god, I was bringing my own prejudices and my own short-sightedness and all that, and putting it on screen, and it hasn't aged well, that kind of thing. But I don't think that means it's invalid just because it's not the filmmaker's intent, because it's still somehow, I feel like somehow things that you perceive, whether you intend them to be put on display or not as a filmmaker, are going to find their way onto the screen. Like, ultimately people are going to gain insight to you as a filmmaker. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what I feel like I'm gaining into Mark Jones, because this is his baby. Even though he modified it over and over again, it's still largely him at the helm. Like, yes, he had the winds had him shifting in many different directions throughout the production of this movie, but he was still manning the ship as it was, kind of like suffering through these winds and these tidal waves and everything like that. He was still the one who was in command of this particular vessel, and I really like that motif on me. But so maybe I don't even know what else Mark Jones has done actually as a filmmaker. Maybe I should look at other movies he's made, see if I've seen any of them, and see if I'd have a similar reaction as far as his worldview, and as far as like his idea of
theme,
his idea of romance, his idea of like family.
Spielberg, like 95% of Spielberg movies are about daddy issues, and like 80% of Richard Linklater's movies are about the passage of time, like running themes and bodies of work.
They say a director only ever makes one movie and makes it over and over and over again. I don't think that's entirely true, but it's another interesting way to look at them when you go through a body of work. Are you seeing anything?
He directed Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay, but before or after?
After,
of course. When was that? What year was that?
95.
Wow. I'm really curious.
And he did Scorn in 2013, which I have heard of because
I haven't seen it.
Annalyn McCord and Billy Zane were in it. I remember that being a thing. Yeah, and he's written 50 things.
Oh, okay.
Although, to be fair, he gets like every time they make a Leprechaun, it's based on characters created by.
Okay. And there were like, how many Leprechaun movies are there now?
6 in the original series, 8 total, because they did Leprechaun Origins, which is a reboot, and then there's the newest Leprechaun, which is like a sequel to the original Leprechaun.
Okay.
Different actor, but it's still like a sequel too.
I think I saw Vegas and the space one, because those are 3 and 4, I believe. Yeah. I don't remember if I made it into the hood with him.
I never did, and I always wanted to, because I remember at the time, a friend of mine, God, I can't remember her name. I don't think you ever did theater with her, but she was part of the same network of children's theaters that we did from different, more in my city.
Sure.
But I remember at the time she got cast in the upcoming Leprechaun 5.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, but then like 3 years later it came out. I wasn't friends at that point, and it was called Leprechaun in the Hood. I'm like, I wonder if she's even in this, or if that's...
Yeah.
because it was called Leprechaun 5 at the time.
Well, who knows?
I am genuinely curious now that I know that this was a product of reshoots.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that stood out to me really badly was roller skate Leprechaun.
Yeah.
On the back of the truck, Marty McFlying. And then the truck turns, he's like, "Whoa!" And it felt, for the first time in this movie, too broad of a comic beat. And what struck me about it was that every other comedic beat involving Leprechaun is him taunting or fucking with other people. Yeah. Everything is at the expense of them. And this is the only time where it's at the expense of him, which is why I didn't really read right. It felt like a kid's movie beat.
Yeah.
And he even goes through the fucking thing like a cartoon. And I can't help but wonder, was that probably in the original shoot that was a more family-friendly movie? Because that doesn't seem like so.
I would imagine
that's not horror. That's kid shtick.
Yeah.
That it pretty much almost answers that without answering it. But I have a feeling now that.
I also wonder about Alex's advanced years that he seems to have acquired just internally. But boy, I could go for a beer right now. And
don't you drink that stuff?
And and the way he's a mechanic, like, oh shoot, the distributor cap, and he races over to get under the hood, and people are just comfortable with a child working on the car.
Well, that's the dream, right? When you're a kid, is like the adults will treat you like adults, and I mean that's a trope that's been going on for fucking decades. Is that the kid who's good at stuff and adult stuff? I mean, we just saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, where like she rewired the fucking air conditioning or something in there, like just.
I bought that.
and I could buy a kid wiggling a distributor cap. I didn't think twice about it. It's a small town, but it's weird though that like this is how like old timey it is. Like they have a truck that says like 3 guys who paint.
Yeah.
One of your guys is a fucking child.
I know.
And they even talk about like he's like, hey, can I lend a hand? It's like, no, because for like litigious reasons or for liability reasons, we can't. You're a kid. For liability, you shouldn't be employed.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Even I don't need it, but I do wonder about the whole situation between the 3 of them too, because there really doesn't seem to be much of a bond between Nathan and Alex, even though they're brothers. There is much more of a bond between Alex and I've already forgotten his name.
Oh, Ozzy?
Ozzy. I was going to call him CC.
You want that backstory, don't you? And to learn.
I don't. It's not that
they're estranged brothers, and what drove them?
It's
apart?
not that I want that. It's just like, I mean, it's not that hard. It's like literally like maybe one more line exchange between the brothers to just kind of give me like a feel of for like what's the dynamic of that. Where are the parents and why are they painting? You know, I mean, these are all things that they could have done that would have just made it more interesting to me. I think the only reason it occurred to me is because there were a number of times during the movie where I just kind of leaned back and went, you know, and that's not why I watch movies. I could do that. I could turn the TV off and just sit there and just like, but
it's interesting because there is a version of this movie that could have almost worked as more of a straight horror movie, because it does the one thing that I like that horror movies do as a byproduct of limited resources, which is, well, we can't really afford a lot of extras and stuff. So like, turns out that this old folks home just won't really have any people in it. Well, that actually is kind of scary when you don't populate hospitals and old folks homes. It feels creepy. You are living on a farm. It's a little isolated. Like had you made this a more legit movie, you had the lack of resources to make a more isolated, creepy movie.
Yeah.
Could have. I think they spent all their extras budget on the diner, because I remember when we started in the diner, I'm like, wow, you got a bunch of people for this scene. Good job.
It actually looks like a practical location.
It does. Yeah. Unlike the fucking O'Grady house, which like, not to disparage the fact that, you know, looks like a real house or anything, but just, God, they have this one room. It's like, there's like a green wall paint, a yellow wallpaper, a green pattern wallpaper, a blue wall. And I'm like, the fucking O'Grady's had shit taste. Just an obnoxious looking house to be in.
Everybody in the town has shit taste. The three guys that only paint in red, yellow, and blue.
Oh my God, the blue wall with red shutters. Like that is gonna look so fucking ugly.
But not just blue, and not even just sky blue, but just like pure deep sky blue and fire engine red. And they even wear their colors. Nathan doesn't, but if you look at the other two guys, they're mixing primaries during daylight hours like Superman.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't look as good on them.
I referred to the three guys who paint as like very old timey, even just in their choice of clothes and shit, and just the idea of their business. But also, I kind of said it out loud when the Leprechaun takes like I think like the little toy car. I'm like, oh, he's like a little rascal.
Yes.
And I'm stuck behind the truck, no Petey, like.
Or Gizmo driving in a little car, yeah.
Well, and he dies like fucking Stripe.
Yeah. Jesus. But does he?
Well, obviously no. And then the movie does a voiceover until he did. And then also on the phone, he's like, by the way, I'm Freddy Krueger.
Right. I'm just like seeing it.
And also like all the power, he has apparently all the powers now. Now that he's got his coin back.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why he doesn't die. That's another thing. It's just like the only way to kill a leprechaun for Mr. O'Grady is, to touch him with a 4-leaf clover. He eats it, and he's dead, so he can't shit it out. But he's still. So I wish either Mr. O'Grady hadn't said kill and would have said stop instead, or that, I mean, again, this is not like really mindful, kind of like enlightened, higher thinking kind of stuff. This is like really basic stuff. But I wish they either would have done that, or I wish they would have done something wrong with like the 4-leaf clover. Like if they would have tried to touch his skin and maybe it like grazed him, but it didn't like make actual and then he was like and then disappeared before he could really completely disappear. I mean, I just wish, because people criticize movies these days and I'm not saying they're not right to do so, but criticize movies these days for not just making a good movie, for setting up a universe and not really making just one good movie that people are going to want to see more movies from. That I think there's a balance. I think you can realize their potential for a franchise here if this is a success, and build it in a little, but at the same time still, make the best movie you can. So I don't know, that's just my 2 cents. I'm just on a soapbox. I'm just on my fucking soapbox this whole time.
And of all the movies to be on a soapbox for, you're punching down on Leprechaun.
I mean, it's making more money than I am these days. So.
I just want to point out 2 little things, and then I think I'm done.
Okay.
I am amused by, just from the logistics standpoint, of almost every time he emerges from somewhere, that like they're like, his hat, we can't have her Velcro, like it's gonna fall off. So every time he comes out and then has to put his hat on. Mm-hmm. And I just always feel bad that like he's always wearing the hat, but like could they not like sew it onto the wig or Velcro? I don't know. Or the space he's in, it doesn't fit. But I always think of the logistics of like, you come out and then put your hat on. It just feels like something Ed Wood would have told him to do. Like, put your hat on because we don't have room for you. Man, just made me chuckle every time.
Never occurred to me.
Oh, it always occurred to me. And I'm like, oh, there he is coming out of the fridge and put your hat on. There he is coming out of a crate and put your hat on. He's coming out of this, put your hat on.
Okay.
Also, I genuinely was like, huh? Audibly out loud. He's got the thing. He turns into Stripe or the brain gremlin and melts. Comes back out. Fuck you into the thing. And then what's his name? Nathan?
Yeah.
Goes to the thing and gets the gasoline. I'm like, oh yeah, light that fucker on fire. Just, light him up. He drops the thing and it explodes.
Yeah.
And I went, well, that was just gasoline, right? Like, it's not in a pressurized container down there. And there's
or no dynamite.
Right. There's no, that's just gas, right?
Leprechauns are 80% dynamite.
Leprechauns, I didn't, you know what? Fuck me for overthinking it. Leprechauns are explosive. That's, the gunpowder was in him all along.
That's where all that, that prankery comes from.
They burned up the 4-leaf clover. Now he can come back.
While burning him up.
Well, if there's still a little bit of him left, he can still come. I don't fucking know.
I don't know. I mean, or just, let the next one be like a she leprechaun, like they used to do with the Wolfman. The Werewolf of London, and then the She Wolf of London, Candyman's daughter, who I'm still waiting for. She's bad for your teeth.
I've always had a problem with that line because, like,
me too.
The sequel to Candyman is not.
No,
Candyman's
never was.
And that technically it is Candyman female descendant, but she isn't the threat, so it never works.
No. No.
I had a thought, now it's gone.
I'm sorry. Leprechauns are explosive.
Oh yeah. Also, did you catch this? Because I caught this.
What?
He's melting, and it cuts to them. Also, they're all underreacting.
Mm-hmm.
They all just look mildly annoyed. But we cut back to like this really grainy close-up, and he's like a skeletal puppet. Mm. Then we cut back to them, and then he's more like in a full suit and falls down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wait, why? And then when he comes back, he's still like in a suit.
Uh-huh.
There was clearly some other version of it filmed with like a skeletal little puppet. Mm-hmm. And they used it, but then they never stay with it. And I wonder if that's also a product of the reshoots.
That could go either way. That could either be a product of the reshoots or a product of a very low budget.
Then don't even make it. They had the budget to do. It's weird. He's decomposing at like a scale of 7 to like a 3, and then back to a 7. Comes back as like a 6. But there is this shot of like a holy shit. He's at a 3. He's done.
Maybe it's just poor editing.
Yeah, it's poor editing of like a scene that like just don't use that take then. Don't.
Well, okay, we're going to start arguing about this now.
No, we're not. We're fucking done. We're fucking done. If anyone out there is watching who's never seen Leprechaun and has had it, why would you watch this without having seen it? Like, I still say go on the ride, man. It's fun. It's not.
Check it out. See what you think.
It's not the greatest bad movie, but it is a kind of fun bad movie.
I'm always of the mind that, like, don't take my word for it. You know what you like. You no one's going to know better than you. And also, you'll never know what you think about it until you see it. That's the only reason I see most movies that I don't have an inclination to see, is just because I know a lot of people are going to be talking about it, and it's like, well, I'd rather have my own opinion than just going to sit there and go, I haven't seen it. And now there are more movies than ever, so it's really hard. There's more content, period. Yeah, but
where also I know, like, I think it's going to be a piece of shit, but I don't want to just sit there and go, oh, it looks like a piece of shit. I'm like, well, no, actually, I guess I'll go see it so I can have an informed opinion.
Yeah.
So that if it does come up, I'll be like, oh, this is a piece of shit, and here's why. Versus this just obnoxious prick who just like thinks it's going to suck and therefore it sucks. Like, no. I'll never forget. Like, that was literally why I remember I saw Psycho, the remake.
Oh.
Was simply because, like, me and my friend who adored Psycho were like, let's go see it. Why? Like, so if anyone asks, we can say it sucks. Here's why. Other than just being some snob who's sitting off the side going, fuck that movie. Well, have you seen it? No.
And that's, yeah. I mean,
fuck this movie. And you know what? It sucked.
I mean, it's also a valid, like, excuse if there's something you don't want to see. Like, if you're watching this and you haven't seen it and you really don't want to see it, didn't want to before, really don't now, then fine. Don't see it. But the thing is, because I mean, there are plenty of things that, like, I have no inclination to see, and I don't care if I'm out of the conversation, because it's like, I'll just walk to the other side of the room, or I'll just wait until they're done. And, whatever. I mean, there's that side too, but whatever. I mean, it's all good. It's no big swig.
Well, I say, get yourself like a pint of Guinness.
Oh, definitely. I should have been drunk for this movie. I would have had a better time, maybe.
Corned beef and cabbage.
Oh, I mean, it's good. I like corned beef and cabbage, but maybe not.
And treat yourself.
Mm.
If it's weird that this gets brought up at St. Patrick's Day as a viewing thing.
Yeah.
Because aside from being a leprechaun, it doesn't take, like, Halloween takes place on Halloween. Black Christmas takes place at Christmas.
Yeah.
This doesn't take place in fucking Ireland. It doesn't have anything to do with St. Patrick's Day.
No, it is absolute. Like, we started with racism in the pod when I did my Irish accent, and we're going to end with it just because it's probably one of the most prejudiced things we do as Americans is incorporate, you know, leprechauns into St. Patrick's Day. It has nothing to do with St. Patrick and never did. Right? Like, drinking, actually, sure. I mean, but, you know, drink on any holiday if, you know,
right.
you know,
or
safely,
on
responsibly. Responsibly. And but we live in the age of Lyft and, you know, call up a friend, whatever. But what am I trying to say? I'm completely losing my point. But anyway, yeah, but I mean, I think
St. Patrick's Day and the racism of
St. Patrick's Day and the racism and everything like that, and the like, oh, we're all Irish now, and it's like, no, we're not. And it would, yeah, I don't know. It's I wonder if St. Patrick's Day ever figures into any of these movies, actually, if anything actually ever. I can't remember if it does. The ones that I've seen. I haven't seen any of the reboots either.
Yeah, I've only seen 1, 2, 3, and half of 4.
Okay, I'm about there too. Yeah.
Well,
I remember an interesting turn in 2. I'm not going to go into it, but I'm anxious to revisit that at some point.
Okay, we have all of them here.
Hey.
I remember. So Tracy has them.
Yeah.
And God bless it. I'm glad she has them on DVD. Mm-hmm. But I remember at one point a few years ago, Best Buy had a Best Buy exclusive steelbook of Leprechauns 1 through 6 and Origins. And I was like, ooh, maybe. I think it was only like $15 or $20. And I'm like, fuck, maybe. I don't know how often I'm going to watch these, but that seems like a good time. And then I never got it. And now it's out of print. And then a few years ago, I was reading reviews. I'm like, hey, apparently the transfers are pretty good, but also each movie has pretty good bonus features that like talk about the making of each movie and good interviews. I'm like, that sounds like worth. Let me look up how much it's on. I'm like, okay, it's like $45. Like maybe. Never pulled the trigger. And now I looked it up this week. It's like $90. It's like $100.
Of course.
I'm like, God damn it.
That's a shame.
I don't need to buy the fucking Steelbook Blu-ray because we have them on DVD and these are not fucking Citizen Kane.
I would never make that purchase. Like, I mean, I own Citizen Kane, but I don't. But I would never need to own these. I don't mind giving them my money. Like, I rented this off of Redbox, I believe. It was on Netflix for a long time.
It was.
Which is why I thought like, oh, good pod fare, and then it got yanked. So I ended up having to rent it off Redbox anyway. But I like Redbox because they're not owned by any corporate conglomerate yet. And
give it time, everything will be.
Sure. But you know, I'm gonna enjoy this while I can. And by enjoy it, I mean rent movies that I don't like.
Yeah.
But it's fun talking about them with you.
I agree.
Yeah.
We should do it more often.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for me because I actually do like it, and that's my intent is to talk about something I do like. But as long as you don't like it, fair game, man. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
We'll be back again for something else.
Yeah.
Until then,